Okay, hi there. Jeff here with a video on a key aspect of European Monetary Union. Let's start off with a bubble quiz, just a little quick quiz of general knowledge. We ask a question and the number of answers that can be correct could be 0, 1, 2, 3, even all 4. Have a go at this question. Which of these countries are members of the euro area? So which of these countries, shown in the 4 bubbles there, are participating in the single European currency? Finland, Sweden, Norway and the Netherlands. Maybe press the pause button, have a go at this question. How many do you think are right? And then press the play button when you want to go through the answer. So at the moment, as of November 2022, 2 of those countries are part of a single currency, Finland and Netherlands. Sweden is inside the EU but has chosen to keep its own currency, and Norway is outside of the European Union, although it's inside the European Union single market. Question number 2, here it comes. Which of these newer EU countries, when I say newer, these are the countries that have joined in the last 15 or 20 years or so, which of these newer EU countries have the euro as their currency? So how many of these countries have swapped their own currency to the euro? 4 countries are Slovenia, Poland, Slovakia and Malta. Again, press the pause button, have a go. What do you think? Can you get this one right? And the answer is 3 of them. Slovenia, Slovakia and Malta have all swapped their currencies, and Poland has kept the zloty, which is a floating currency. Well, the reason for doing this video is that there is a change in the single currency area in 2023. Croatia has been given the go-ahead by the European Union to switch to the single currency, the euro, from the 1st of January 2023. They will become the 20th nation to join the monetary union since it came into being in 1999. And it's interesting, it's just a decade on from when Croatia actually joined the European Union in 2013. And here's a headline from the Financial Times in June 2022. Croatia given green light by the European Central Bank, or the ECB, to join the euro in January 2023. A little bit on the Croatian economy. It's quite an interesting economy. A very important aspect is that tourism is perhaps one of the dominant significant industries. Nearly 20% of their GDP is accounted for directly and indirectly by tourism. They have a population of 4.1 million, but actually the forecast, it's going to fall by about 10%, perhaps even more than that by 2040. So this is a country that's experiencing depopulation, particularly of younger people. They're a middle-income country. They have a per capita income of just over $12,000. It's the 46th highest current GDP per capita in the world. It's just one place above Romania. 80% government debt to GDP ratio. It's lower than the UK, but higher than the EU average. 8% unemployment, relatively high, and a little bit of data there on inequality. The richest quintile had 36% of all income. The lowest, the poorest quintile, had only 10% of the income. So let's think about this from the point of view of a question. Evaluate or examine the likely benefits and costs of joining the euro, as Croatia is set to do in January 2023. Bit of background. So the currency at the moment is the kuna, K-U-N-A, the kuna. And what I've done here is I'm showing you the value of the kuna against the euro over the last 5 years. As the value of that chart goes up from 7.4 to 7.6 and so on, that means the kuna is depreciating against the euro. It costs you more kuna to buy a euro. And you can see that the exchange rate's been actually relatively stable, hasn't it? Because I've shortened the y-axis. And this is because the kuna has been part of the exchange rate mechanism since the summer of 2020. If you want to join the single currency, you have to be part of the exchange rate mechanism, which essentially fixes the exchange rate or stabilizes it without severe tensions or without devaluation for at least 2 years. So the current, I think basically the fix is 7.5 kuna to the euro. It can move 10 or 15% either side, but it hasn't. And therefore, over the last 5 years, people have become more confident and more used to this exchange rate. So in theory, this should help ease the transition when they move to the single currency. Take a moment. I'll press 30-second clock in a second. Can you write down two key features of a common currency inside a monetary union. Well, here are two features. First of all, of course, if you join a single currency, then each country, there are now 20 European Union countries having the euro from January, they use the same currency as a medium of exchange when you're buying goods and services, and as a store of value, and as a unit of account. So your bank accounts, your savings will be in euros, your mortgage will be in euros, your bank loan will be in euros, and so on and so forth. Your weekly shopping bill will be in euros. Of course, that's the essence, isn't it, of a monetary union. The second point, crucially, is that if you join a single currency area, there's one central bank, the European Central Bank, and that's responsible for setting monetary policy of all the member nations. So they set the base interest rate for the European area. And of course, you have to learn to live with that. So, you can't change your policy interest rates on a whim, because you're now part of a much wider monetary authority. Have a go at this one. Again, if you want to give yourself a bit more time, just press the pause button. Can you think of three possible advantages, benefits for a country such as Croatia joining the euro? So what did you come up with? Three benefits, potentially? Well, here are 3 points. I'm sure there are many you could make. Here are my 3 points coming up. First of all, let's think about tourism. So tourism is 20% of Croatia's GDP. It's a huge percentage of their national output. Obviously, many tens of thousands of jobs and businesses depend on tourism. And it can make a plausible case for arguing that having a single currency is good news for their tourist sector. You see all those people coming from other European countries. They don't have to swap one currency for another. That eliminates the conversion costs. And so therefore you'd expect maybe the Croatian tourist sector to become even more successful, particularly as Croatia emerges from the pandemic. A second point is that you're swapping the kuna for the euro. And in theory, of course, the euro is a much bigger currency, big percentage of the world economy, and it therefore should be more stable in theory. If a country has a more stable currency, that lowers or reduces the risk for overseas investors when they're, for example, buying government bonds or investing in the country. So in theory, that should bring interest rates down on things like government debt, which makes their debt, Croatian government debt, more serviceable. And we did say that Croatia is expecting their population to fall, depopulation. They're planning to combine a single currency with joining the region's Schengen border-free travel zone, which is where you can travel very easily without borders across European countries. Now, a single currency just makes it easier, actually, to do that, because things like pensions and wages are all in one currency. So in theory, that should bring some of the barriers down to labour mobility and hopefully allow Croatia to attract younger workers into the labour force. What about some of the risks? What about some of the drawbacks, the downsides? Again, let me have 30 seconds. If you need more time, just press the pause button. course, joining the single currency has both benefits and costs and risks. Well, here are 3 points that I would argue. Again, there are many more points. I'm sure you could think of some others probably better than those on the screen. The first is that joining the single currency means that Croatia is essentially giving up, sacrificing, if you like, the option of running their own independent monetary policy. That means setting their own interest rates to meet a macro objective, unemployment and growth and inflation and so on and so forth. So essentially what they're doing is they're pooling the sovereignty with other European countries, and the European Central Bank will set the main policy interest rate. Now, Croatia is a very, very small economy, so it will have a very low weighting in any interest rate decisions. Germany and Spain and France and Italy and so on have a much higher weighting, so we tend to focus on those countries when setting interest rates. A linked point is point 2. Croatia moving to the euro means that they can't engineer a competitive depreciation of their currency, maybe to help their export sector or help come out of recession. So you have to basically live with the interest rate set by the European Central Bank, and you have to live with being competitive with the euro as your currency. And there are also kind of some short-term dynamics here. People talk about the cost of printing the notes and coins and minting the new currency. Well, that's a one-off cost, but there's likely to be a one-time increase in consumer prices. Often when you swap from one currency to another, then businesses maybe try and take advantage by just raising the price a bit, which impacts on consumers' living standards. And if Croatia moves towards much lower interest rates going forward, if borrowing becomes cheaper, that could lead to things like a boom in credit and a boom in house prices, which might damage housing affordability. That certainly happened to quite a few other European countries after they joined the euro. Important to note, a bit of context here, that there are 27 countries inside the European Union. 8 of them, get that right? 28 countries. 28. 7 of them are inside the EU, but not part of the single currency. Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Sweden. Those countries are all inside the EU, but not part of the single currency, okay? Croatia becomes the 20th member nation to join. In theory, if you're a European Union member state, you are obliged to bring the euro in once. So at some point, you have to fill the convergence criteria and things like keeping inflation under control and having fairly low debt. But the reality is that there's no immediate pressure on these countries to join. Sweden, for example, has had a referendum to stay outside of the single currency. It can take many years to come about. So key arguments for joining a single currency generally, first of all, that the euro is a relatively stable currency, so therefore there's less risk in terms of investors and things. A lot of people argue that having a single currency helps to reinforce some of the benefits of being in the single market, particularly because it encourages more cross-border trade. Having a stable single currency might also stimulate investment, particularly we talked about tourism, financial services, car making. So Croatia would hope to benefit from that. And having one currency makes it kind of easier to compare prices in different countries. So particularly with a lot of online shopping and e-commerce, it's just easier to see who's charging lower prices and higher prices. That might help improve competition. And crucially, if you have a shared currency, you don't need to keep swapping currencies every time you cross the border. That, in theory, should help improve labour mobility. Interest rates are often quite similar between countries. I just thought I'd show you this chart. So central bank interest rates from 2019 to 2022 up to the summer. Notice the big rise there in Russian central bank interest rates as they try to cope with the collapsing ruble following the invasion of Ukraine. I think you can see there the UK interest rates starting to go up. The euro area has fairly low interest rates, 1.5% at the moment. So Croatia, will have to adjust to low interest rates when it joins in January. Although interest rates are not massively out of line with the euro area at the moment. There we go. This has been a special video on monetary union with a particular focus on the new kid on the block. Croatia is joining the single currency in January 2023. Hope you found it useful. Thanks for joining me again. Stay happy, stay positive, and see you sometime soon.